Thanks to Curiosity Stream for supporting my channel. I read 104 books in 2021. Of how productive you should be as a PhD student and YouTuber, or however you happen to pass your time. But I thought it would be interesting to highlight some of my favorite books out of what I read last year. If you're new here, I'm Jordan, and I am a PhD candidate and YouTuber at MIT who studies neurotechnology and machine learning. You can follow me on all my various socials below, and I'll actually be reviewing all 104 videos over on Nebula later this weekend, so you can sign up for Nebula and Curiosity Stream using the link in the description if you want to watch that behemoth of a video. But without further ado, let's get into it. So the first book on my list is actually a trilogy, and it is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is the first book. There are 3 of them, and I've always been a science fiction and fantasy nerd, but this is an amazing series and I'd highly recommend it. Especially because in my experience, science fiction tends to be, at the very least, a very male-dominated field in terms of characters, if not a very white male-dominated field. And this is a book where pretty much all of the main characters and cast are people of color. It's set in a cultural context that I feel like is very different from a lot of the science fiction novels that I've read before. And the world building in this is honestly just incredible. This book is, 450 pages, each of them are probably around that long. I think I finished all 3 of them in about a week. So highly recommend this book. I loved reading it. I'm really looking forward to reading more from this author this year. And yeah, definitely go pick it up. Also, all of these books will be linked in the description down below. They are affiliate links as a heads up, but if you want to check out any of these books, you can. The next book on my list is actually something that I read as an ebook, so I don't have a physical copy here, and it is 4,000 Weeks. So if you go over my Goodreads profile, you'll see that in 2021 I was on a bit of a productivity kick, and I read pretty much every major popular productivity and self-help book in existence. And 4,000 Weeks was a book that I came across towards the end of the year, and I think the issue that I tend to run into with a lot of productivity and self-help books is that they tend to be very focused on essentially working either really hard, so focused on hustle culture. As someone who's dealt with chronic burnout, that's just not for me. I've learned my lesson on that front. I don't do that anymore. Or they assume that you have a lot of privilege and a lot of resources and connection, and while I certainly do, I just don't find the advice to be interesting or broadly applicable. 4,000 Weeks is different in that it focuses on the fact that on average we have 4,000 weeks of life. And while it would be great if we could fit everything that we want to do, everything that we think that we should be doing into that period of time, you literally can't, and you also shouldn't. And so time management becomes a process of figuring out what your actual priorities are in life, and on some level, keeping your own mortality in mind as you do them so that you don't spend time doing things that don't serve your longer term goals or aren't part of your wellness, relaxation, self-care routines. I think of all of the books I read this year, it was one of the more refreshing ones. It also goes into a little bit of the history of work culture, especially in the US, which I thought was really interesting. So if you're looking for a productivity related book to check out that doesn't lean into a lot of the stereotypes, I would highly recommend that. If you're interested in learning more about it before you buy it, Ali Abdaal actually interviewed the author on his podcast, so I would highly recommend checking that interview to get a sense of what the book is like. Alright, next on the list is another science fiction collection. So it's a collection of stories, and it's called Exhalation. A lot of these actually deal with artificial intelligence, artificial life, autonomous machines, and they're really, really interesting. So I had never read anything by this author before. It was recommended to me by, I believe, some of you guys actually. And these stories are really interesting reflections on the role that technology plays in our lives on a day-to-day basis and what that might look like in the future. But B, interesting reflections on how we interface with things like artificial intelligence in a really human way. It's a little bit hard to explain this book without actually reading it, but if you are interested in science fiction, if you are interested in things like artificial intelligence, artificial life, quantum computing, anything along that line, I would so highly recommend picking up this book and checking it out. And then last but not least is actually another nonfiction book, also another science book, and that is The End of Everything by Katie Mack. If you don't follow her on Twitter, I would highly recommend doing so. She's an astrophysicist and science communicator, and this book essentially catalogs all of the ways that the universe can end, which sounds morbid, definitely, but is really, really interesting. If you didn't know, actually, if you haven't watched my last video, I talked a little bit about it there, but I came across the field of astrophysics when I was in high school, and while it's not where I ended up, it's still a field that really fascinates me, that I find really interesting. And so if you are at all interested in physics, interested in how the universe works, I would definitely recommend checking this out. It was a fascinating read, and I'm not particularly more or less worried about the end of the universe after reading it, so you don't have to worry about picking it up and being like super depressed at the end of it. I am actually, I guess, I have a more positive view on the potential end of the universe in that it's either very, very far away, much, much further than my lifetime on this earth, or it's going to happen instantaneously and none of us will know. Alright, so those were my, I would say, 4 favorite books or book series of 2021. If you want to check out everything else I read and what I thought of it, I read a ton of great books last year, so please don't take these 4 books as the end-all be-all of my interests. In fact, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I am a huge V. Schwab fan. So if you want to hear my very short reviews of the 104 books that I read last year, you should head on over to Nebula for the extended version of that video, which should be up sometime within the next week. If you haven't heard, Nebula is a streaming platform built by me and some of my friends, including people like Tirsu, Simon Clark, and Marcus Brownlee. On Nebula, you can find ad-free versions of all of our videos, plus bonus content in the form of our Nebula Plus videos. You'll also get access to our Nebula Originals, which you can't find anywhere else, including a very good trivia show where I competed against Brian from Real Engineering and Dave from City Beautiful in a bunch of fun and bizarre challenges, including trying to build an IKEA chair while answering math problems. And the best way to sign up for Nebula is actually through CuriosityStream, who are kindly sponsoring today's video. CuriosityStream is a subscription streaming service with thousands of documentaries and nonfiction videos. In fact, if you're looking for behind-the-scenes content from another one of my friends, I'd highly recommend checking out their documentary Behind the Spotlight, which tells the story of how Mr. Beast became, well, Mr. Beast. CuriosityStream loves independent creators and wants to help us grow our platform, so if you click on the link in the description or use my promo code Jordan, you can get access to CuriosityStream for 26% off their annual plans, with Nebula included for free for as long as you are a CuriosityStream member. That's less than $15 a year. CuriosityStream is a great way to directly support my channel while getting to watch my videos ad-free and getting access to my Nebula Plus videos, so sign up for CuriosityStream and Nebula at curiositystream.com/Jordan or using the promo code Jordan. If you're interested in books specifically on AI, you can check out this video that I did on books that you should definitely read about artificial intelligence. Otherwise, you can follow me on all my various socials, and I will see you all next week. Bye!